Muḥammad Haná-Sab. This man of dignity and rank, Agha Muhammad, was yet another among those who abandoned their homes, and was one of the earliest believers. From the dawn-tide he was widely known as a lover of the most great light. He was then in Iṣfahán, and he shut his eyes to this world and the next as well. Footnote: this reference to two worlds, du jihan, may indicate the saying, Iṣfahán is half of the world, or Iṣfahán nis if jihan. End of footnote. And opened his eyes to the beauty of him who is the embodiment of all that is lovable. Agha Muhammad could no longer find rest, for he had come alive through the musk-laden breathings of God. His heart was alight. He could inhale the holy fragrance. He had an eye to see and an ear to hear. He guided a number of souls, remaining true and loyal to the great cause. He endured terrible persecution and torment, but did not falter. Then he found favor in the eyes of the King of Martyrs, and became a trusted attendant of the beloved of martyrs, serving them for some years. Footnote: these twin shining lights were two brothers, famous merchants of Iṣfahán. Because he owed them a large sum of money, the leading priest, Imam Jumieh of the city, brought about their martyrdom. End of footnote. He was confirmed in his work, so that on many occasions the King of Martyrs expressed satisfaction with him, saying, quote, "This man is one of those souls who are at rest. He is indeed well pleased with his Lord, and well pleasing unto him. His faith is unalloyed. He loves God. He has a good character, and leads a quiet life. He is also an agreeable companion, and an eloquent one." Unquote. After the King of Martyrs was put to death, Agha Muhammad stayed on for a time in Iṣfahán, consumed with great mourning for him. Finally he immigrated to the most great prison, where he was received by Baha'u'lláh, and won the high honor of sweeping the ground about the threshold. He was patient, forbearing, a true friend and companion. Then the supreme affliction came upon us, and Agha Muhammad was in such anguish that he was unable to rest for a moment. At every dawn he would rise and would sweep the ground about the house of Baha'u'lláh, his tears pouring down like rain, chanting prayers as he worked. What a holy being he was! How great a man! He could not bear the separation very long, but died and hastened onward to the world of lights, to the assemblage where the beauty of God is unveiled. May God shed upon his grave rays from the realm of forgiveness, and lull his spirit in the heart of paradise. May God exalt his station in the gardens above. His bright tomb is in Ḥájí. Ḥájí Faraju'lláh Tafríshí. Yet another of those who came out of their homeland to live in the neighborhood of Baha'u'lláh was Faraju'lláh of Tafríshí. This blessed individual was from earliest youth the servant of Baha'u'lláh, and with his esteemed father, Agha he immigrated from Persia to Adrianople. Agha was a staunch believer, lovingly devoted to the Blessed Beauty, patient, long-suffering, completely indifferent to this world and its vanities. He lived content in the neighborhood of Baha'u'lláh, and then humbly at the threshold, with a contrite heart, he abandoned this fleeting life and soared away to the boundless realms beyond. His sweet-scented dust is in Adrianople. As for Ḥájí Faraju'lláh, he lived on in that city until the day when merciless oppressors banished Baha'u'lláh to Ḥájí, and in his company the Ḥájí came here to the most great prison. Later on, when hardship was changed into ease, he engaged in trade, becoming a partner to Muhammad Ali of Iṣfahán. For some time he prospered and was happy. Then he was given leave to go, and journeyed to India, where he spent a long period before he winged his way into the gardens of forgiveness and entered the precincts of ineffable mercy. This servant of the Blessed Beauty was one with the believers in their afflictions and calamities. He had his share of the anguish. The favors of Baha'u'lláh compassed him about, and he rejoiced in that boundless grace. He was among the companions, a close associate of the friends, and he had a docile heart. Although his body was thin and sickly, he was thankful, accepted it, was patient, and endured the trials of God's path. Unto him be greetings and praise. May he receive heavenly gifts and blessings. Upon him be the glory of God, the All-Glorious. His pure sepulchre is in Bombay, India. Agha Ibráhím-i-Iṣfahání and his brothers. And among those who immigrated and came to settle in the Holy Land was Agha Ibrahim, one of 4 honored brothers, Muḥammad Sadiq, Muhammad Ibrahim, Agha Habibullah, and Muhammad Ali. These 4 lived in Baghdad with their paternal uncle Agha Muhammad Riza, known as Arid. They all lived in the same house and remained together day and night. Bird-like, they shared the one nest, and they were always fresh and full of grace, like flowers in a bed. When the ancient beauty arrived in Iraq, their house was in the neighborhood of his, and thus they had the joy of watching him as he came and went. Little by little the manner of that Lord of hearts, what he did and what he did not do, and the sight of his lovesome face, had its effect. They began to thirst after the faith and to seek his grace and favor. They presented themselves at the door of his house, and if there were flowers blooming there, and they were soon enamoured of the light that shone out from his brow, captives of the beauty of that dear companion. They needed no teacher then. By themselves they saw through the veils that had blinded them before, and won the supreme desire of their hearts. As commanded by the Blessed Beauty, Mirza Javad of Tafríshí went to their house one night. Mirza Javad had hardly opened his mouth when they accepted the faith. They did not hesitate for an instant, for they had amazing receptivity. This is what is meant by the Quranic verse, quote, "Whose oil would well nigh shine out, even though fire touched it not. It is light upon light," unquote. Quran 24:35. That is, this oil is so fully prepared, so ready to be lit, that it almost catches fire of itself, though no flame be at hand, which means that the capacity for faith and the deserving it can be so great that without the communication of a single word the light shines forth. This is how it was with those pure-hearted men. Truly they were loyal, staunch, and devoted to God. The eldest brother, Muhammad Sadiq, accompanied Baha'u'lláh from Iraq to Constantinople, and from there to Adrianople, where he lived happily for some time, close to his Lord. He was humble, long-suffering, thankful. There was always a smile on his lips. He was light of heart, and his soul was in love with Baha'u'lláh. Later he was given leave to return to Iraq, for his family was there, and he remained in that city for a while, dreaming and remembering. Then a great calamity occurred in Iraq, and all 4 brothers with their noble uncle were taken prisoner. Victimized, captive, they were brought to Mosul. The uncle, Agha Muhammad Riza, was an old man, illumined of mind, spiritual of heart, a man detached from all worldly things. He had been extremely rich in Iraq, enjoying comforts and pleasures, but now in Hadbah, Mosul, he became the chief victim among the prisoners, and suffered dire need. He was destitute, but remained dignified, patient, content, and thankful. Keeping to himself in an out-of-the-way place, he praised God day and night until he died. He gave up his heart to his heart's love, burst from the shackles of this inconstant world, and ascended to the kingdom that endures forever. May God immerse him in the waters of forgiveness, make him to enter the garden of his compassion and good pleasure, and keep him in paradise till the end of time. As for Muhammad Sadiq, he too in Mosul was subjected to hardships on God's path. He too was a soul at rest, well pleased with his Lord, and well pleasing unto him. In the end he too replied to the voice of the King of Glory, quote, Lord, here am I, unquote, and came to fulfill the verses, quote, O thou soul which art at rest, return unto thy Lord, well pleased and well pleasing unto him. Enter thou among my servants, enter thou my paradise, unquote. Quran 89:27-30. And Muhammad Ali, once he was freed from captivity, hastened from Mosul to the Holy Land, to the precincts of inexhaustible grace. Here he still lives. Although he suffers hardship, his heart is at peace. As for his brother Ibrahim, referred to above, he also came on from Mosul to Akka, but to a region close by. There, with patience, calm, contentment, but difficulty, he engaged in trade, meanwhile mourning the ascension of Baha'u'lláh by day and night. Lowly and contrite, with his face turned toward the mysterious realms of God, he wore his life away. At the end, consumed by the years, hardly able to move about, he came to Haifa, where he found a corner of the traveler's hospice to live in, and spent his time humbly calling upon God, entreating him, offering praise. Little by little, eaten away with age, his person began its dissolution, and at the end he stripped off the garment of flesh, and with his unclothed spirit took flight to the realm of the All-Merciful. He was transported out of this dark life into the shining air, and was plunged in a sea of lights. May God brighten his grave with spreading rays, and lull his spirit with the fannings of divine compassion. Upon him be the mercy of God and his good pleasure. As for Habibullah, he too was made a captive in Iraq and was banished away to Mosul. For a long time he lived in that city, subjected to hardships, but remaining content, and his faith increasing day by day. When famine came to Mosul, life was harder than ever on the outsiders, but in the remembrance of God their hearts were at rest, and their souls ate of food from heaven. Thus they endured it all with astonishing patience, and the people wondered at those strangers in their midst, who were neither distressed nor terrified as the others were, and who continued to offer praise day and night. What amazing trust, the people said, they have in God. Habib was a man with a great store of patience and a joyous heart. He accustomed himself to exile, and he lived in a state of yearning love. After the departure from Baghdad, the prisoners of Mosul were constantly made mention of by Baha'u'lláh. With regard to them, he expressed his infinite favor. A few years afterwards, Habib hastened away to the encompassing mercy of God, and found a nest and refuge on the boughs of the celestial tree. There, in the paradise of all delights, with wondrous songs, he poured out his praise of the bountiful Lord.